If you've clicked on this video because you're feeling low, unmotivated, or just stuck in a heavy fog, and it feels like that will never end, I'm really glad that you're here. Today, I'm walking you through a gentle step-by-step guide to help you get out of a funk fast using 7 simple strategies you can start using immediately. Before we begin, a quick but important note. If you are having any thoughts of harming yourself or anyone else, please pause this video and contact help right away by calling 988 in the United States or whatever your local hotline is. And of course, you can call your local emergency number or 911. You are not alone, and support is available right now to talk to someone. So now let's take a long, slow, deep breath, feel our feet on the ground, and let's move through this together, not with pressure, but with compassion. Hi, I'm Amy Rose White. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I've been in private practice for nearly 2 decades, and I am also a survivor of lifelong depression. So I know a thing or two personally about what I'm going to discuss with you today. What I'm talking about actually works. I've done it all. So let's start with strategy number 1. When we're in a funk, our thoughts often spiral into dark or repetitive loops. So maybe you've been thinking, I can't get anything right. I should be doing more. Nothing is ever going to change. Or maybe it's just this general heaviness without clear words. Right now, take a moment, either mentally or on paper, which I highly suggest, and identify one repeating thought that's been following you around and try to catch that thought. Let it rise to the surface. Don't judge it. Don't try to fight it. We're just trying to catch it and name it. Try to write it down, although you can always keep it in your head if you want. But I'm going to actually have you destroy that thought that you've written down when you're done with the practice, or at least, destroy the piece of paper by burning it or shredding it. So just notice what that thought was, write it down if you can, and now gently reach for a slightly better feeling thought. Not a perfect thought, not a sunny, positive, like Instagram quote worthy type of thought, just something that feels slightly lighter. So instead of I'm failing, maybe that's what you wrote down, maybe I'm trying my best under tough circumstances. Or instead of nothing is improving, you could write next to that, small shifts are still possible. Instead of the thought that you wrote down of I should be better by now, maybe I'm allowed to take my time. Healing is not an event, it's a process. So this is not about forcing positivity. It is about loosening the grip of that negative thought loop, even just a tiny little bit. And that small shift really does matter. Number 2, we're going to create some tiny momentum. So a body in motion, as you know, tends to stay in motion, and a body at rest tends to stay at rest. You know how that goes. But the motion can be really small to still be very effective. When we're in a funk, our brain might tell us that nothing small is even worth doing. But in reality, tiny actions are actually how we reboot our motivation. So I want you to pick one small action for today, or at least in the next couple hours, like brushing your teeth, washing your face, drinking a glass of water, taking a vitamin you know is good for you, changing into clean clothes, opening the curtains, or choosing any other micro task that doesn't feel overwhelming. The goal is not to be productive. The goal is to spark just a little bit of momentum, which is a signal to your brain that movement is happening. If you can, actually do that tiny action right after watching this video. And then congratulate yourself for doing it. Tell yourself that the little steps actually matter and you're heading in the right direction. That there's nothing wrong with you, that this is what being in a funk looks like, and that you are taking the steps that are needed to move forward a little bit at a time, and that one little bit at a time is enough. The completion does not need, fanfare or even energy or like you feeling like it. It just needs the willingness to move an inch. Momentum grows from inches, not miles. Number 3, reach out to someone. When we're down, isolation whispers to us. It says, don't bother anyone, don't be a burden, nobody cares, and you're alone in this. But isolation, the voice of that, lies. Reaching out doesn't have to be dramatic or vulnerable. You don't even need to tell anyone what's going on, unless you're about to hurt yourself, of course. It can be, simple and quiet and low pressure. So just find one tiny point of connection that you can make today, like sending a text, sharing a meme with an old friend, even commenting on someone's post. Obviously, calling a friend is a great idea. Or if you're struggling deeply, again, you need to talk to someone, call 988. Just choose one person you feel safe reaching out to, even if you only send a one-word message like, hey. Human connection is really our emotional oxygen, and you deserve to breathe. We tend to disconnect from that when we're down. So if human connection just feels too overwhelming or too vulnerable, then do this with an animal. But I want you to add something different. So here you don't just mindlessly pet, your cat or your dog or your gerbil or whatever you have while watching TV. I mean, you can certainly do that, but for our purposes, I want you to really bring your full presence to the animal. I want you to feel the texture of their fur. I want you to look into their eyes. I want you to see the adoring way, especially if you have a cat or dog, especially dogs, look at you. I want you to see if you can receive that unconditional love that that animal has for you and how it needs you. And go borrow someone else's if you don't have an animal of your own to do this. I would literally even go so far as to go to a dog park and sit on a bench, and eventually some sweet soul will come up to you and wag its tail and say hi. I am not exaggerating or joking when I say this. Get yourself out so that you can connect with something or someone, even if it's not a person, just some sentient being. Strategy 4, one small act of service. This next strategy surprises people because it does seem counterintuitive. When we're low, giving anything to anyone feels impossible. But service does not mean some big heroic act. It can be tiny, like watering one of your plants, feeding, or again, petting an animal, because that's giving to them, holding the door for someone, choosing to give someone a compliment, picking up a piece of trash, donating an extra dollar at the grocery store. Any small kindness that fits where you are. So why does this help? Because service cracks open that shell of self-criticism. It gives our brain actually proof that I can still contribute, I have something meaningful to offer, and I still matter, and I'm connected to the world. That little bit of proof can actually be very powerful when we're depressed. And I know it sounds trite, when you're depressed or in a funk, we're very self-absorbed. And I can say this from my own many bouts with severe depression, is that we can get lost in negative thinking. That scary story that we've created for ourselves and in our own paralysis. And it's not to say that there isn't a good reason for that sometimes. It may be biochemical or a huge stressor or grief or loss in your life, and that makes sense. Sometimes it's a combination of that with complex trauma, again, maybe a massive loss that we've just experienced in their life, and there's obviously a good reason to be self-consumed in our own pain. It's just that it doesn't serve us in getting out. And I've never seen an exception where engaging in some kind of service doesn't lift that heavy burden of getting kind of lost in the sea of our own fear and anger and sadness or bitterness or resentment and that hopelessness. And it is really like a magic antidote for that. And for that reason, I actually don't really believe in altruism, because the benefit of going out to serve in the world absolutely outweighs the cost of the effort, time, energy, and resources involved. There's a reason why in 12-step traditions, when people get sober from alcohol and drugs, becoming a sponsor or giving is part of the process and the program. For me, there's a local food pantry very close to my house that is really easy to plug in and contribute to. So whether I go and pick up the food from the grocery stores early in the morning with my truck once a month, or actually going and packaging that food in the kitchen, for me, that's a very accessible and very powerful source of being able to recognize that for me, although depression can come on for a variety of different reasons, for me, it's not related to food insecurity. And for so many people, their lives revolve around that, finding food for themselves and their children, especially right now. So I encourage you to find one small way that just works for you, where the focus gets to be on someone else, and notice what happens in your body. It is truly the biggest gift to give. And number 5, remember that change is inevitable. When we're in a funk, it feels permanent. But every emotion, even the heavy ones, and even the really dark times in our lives, they are temporary. They rise, they peak, and they fall, even if the cycle is really slow. So write or whisper a reminder to yourself, this moment won't last forever. I have survived every hard moment before this. Change always comes, even when I can't feel it yet. Let these reminders be a small anchor. Obviously not because they fix everything, but because they make some room for hope, even if that's very quiet in the moment. So for this one, I actually, again, encourage you to write down some other times where things felt really permanent, or things you thought you couldn't survive, moments you thought would never change, maybe things like breakup grief that you never thought you would move past, maybe you thought you'd never meet another good person in the world, or a better fit, or a time when you thought you could never adjust to living in a new city or state or country. Maybe a time when you were in so much grief from a loss of someone that you loved that you didn't even think you could survive it, but you did. Go back and catalog in writing proof that this idea that the moment won't last forever is actually true. And when we see in black and white proof of such things, it becomes a lot easier to believe and to shift out of those ruminating thinking spirals on what is essentially a lie, and that keeps us stuck. And number 6, nourish before you accomplish. One of the biggest mistakes people make is when they're low, they expect themselves to be productive before they nourish themselves. And you cannot pour from an empty tank. So choose one nourishing thing today before you expect yourself to do anything else, like just eating something simple, taking a warm shower, sitting in sunlight, wrapping yourself in a blanket, listening to a calming meditation on YouTube, or anything that feels soothing and doable. Give yourself permission to receive care before you demand output from yourself. Nourish first and accomplish later, or not at all for today. And be sure and check in with those basic things before doing anything else, because if you are completely depleted, everything will be so much harder. And one kind gesture to yourself, making sure you eat and drink water, when you do that, it again teaches your body that you are worthy, that you do deserve to have hope and to have happiness and to have peace in your life. And with depression, we really have to act as if that's true long before it feels like that's the case. And number 7, lower the bar for today. Sometimes the fastest way out of the funk is lowering the bar so far down that success becomes possible again. So ask yourself, what is one thing that is just good enough for today? Not perfect, not impressive, not what you think you should do, just what is good enough. Maybe it's just getting one chore done, answering one email or a message, leaving the house once for 10 minutes, making our bed, or even just watching this video to the end. If you do that one thing, you get to count today as a success, genuinely, fully, and without guilt. Just let today be small. Small days are still days. They still move you forward. Now take a moment to check in with yourself. How do you feel after running through these exercises with me mentally? A little lighter, a little more grounded, or maybe just a little more aware of where you are? Whatever came up is okay. Ask yourself, what's one small thing you're proud of today? Something you did, something you tried, maybe it's just something you simply, got through. Even watching this video is an act of effort and love to yourself. You have already done something meaningful. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for hyping, sharing, and liking this video. Let me know in the comments what has worked in these strategies and what hasn't. And until next time, bye for now.